Welcome to Taste Buds. I'm Debra Eckerling, goal strategist, writer, and foodie. And today I'm speaking with Patricia Heaton, who is an actor, author, cookbook author, philanthropist, so many things. Welcome, Patricia. Really happy to have you here.
Thanks, Deborah. I appreciate it.
So, uh, we want to talk. You love food, so
Mm.
let's start there. But you also use food as a vehicle to bring people together.
Yes.
So, where'd that come from, and what are you doing?
I'm the founder of an organization called O7C, which stands for October 7th Coalition. And it came together after October 7th. And I didn't see quite the response from Christian and Catholic churches as I was hoping to. I thought there should have been some outrage there, and I wasn't seeing it. And so my co-founder and I decided to start speaking to churches and trying to bring Christians and Jews together. Our motto is to help Christians be visibly and vocally supportive of the Jewish people, of Israel's right to exist, and to fight anti-Semitism wherever it is found. And so I think the first thing you have to do as a Christian and as a Jew is to get out of our silos and come together and start getting to know each other. There's many Christians who love Israel and do many trips to Israel, but they come back and they don't necessarily know any Jewish people in their own neighborhood. And the best way to get people together is over a meal. And so we've been doing unity dinners where we get Christian and Jewish leaders and then just Christian and Jewish supporters to come together to break bread and to get to know each other. So that's been really great. And because of this, I was invited to my first Seder, and it was such a joyful experience. And my husband, who is British, came with me, and it was at a friend's house. And just the prayers and the music and the food and the history and the symbolism, it was such a rich evening. And as a Catholic, who can trace my spiritual history back through the Old Testament, it was very, very meaningful to me. And I saw a lot of my own religious tradition in Judaism, because, of course, Jesus was a Jewish rabbi. So there's a lot there. But food has always been important. The Last Supper was a Passover supper. Jesus talks about bread and wine and it's giving life. And so I think that there's a lot there to bring us together. And just generally speaking, sharing a meal together is a sign of peace and of unity, of bringing families and friends together, and of good conversation, of connecting. And so it's the perfect way to start helping our communities get to know each other.
Well, first of all, I have to say we love the support. We take it and we appreciate it. So thank you. And this is why I love the topic of food so much. Is you can talk to anybody about food, whether it's in the line at a grocery store, well, bank, whatever, or at an organization or a community event where people are coming together and you don't have anything in common. You can always say, "Oh, isn't this delicious?" Or "I have a better recipe for it." So, what is it about food that's been that attraction for you?
Well, I grew up in an Irish Catholic home. And, I used to think, well, my mom was an okay cook, but she had kind of like five standard things. And nothing was gourmet. There was a lot of ground beef involved. So it was burgers or meatloaf or spaghetti sauce, meat sauce. And then as a Catholic, it was fish on Fridays, which usually meant fish sticks, or fish fillets, frozen, or pizza, cheese pizza. Um, and then there was the occasional pot roast. One time she boiled Brussels sprouts and tried to make that happen, and it was a disaster. Cut to Brussels sprouts are one of my favorite things now. It's all how you prepare them. Just boiling them is not a good idea. But that's kind of an Irish thing, isn't it? Boil everything. So, but I was one of 5 children. And so when I started having my family, and I have 4 sons, and I realized the fact that she did this every day, cooking a meal and trying to come up with stuff. And she did try some new things. And she sat in front of the PBS TV show of Julia Child's cooking. This is back in the 60s, and dutifully wrote down recipes that Julia Child was saying. I never saw a French dish pass our table, but I know my mom wrote the recipes down, but I think it was too much for my mom with 5 kids. So I really appreciated the fact that my mom, worked so hard to try to put something different on the table every night. And I moved to New York City right after graduating from The Ohio State University. And I was so opened up to this world of food that I had never been privy to before. I remember a studio musician friend I met in New York told me how this place served raw fish. And I'm like, what are you talking raw fish? So he took me to try sushi. And I was immediately in love with the sushi, not with the studio musician. And so it was those kind of adventures. I used to be a hostess at an Argentinian Italian restaurant, and I didn't know what sweetbreads were. And they had a sweetbreads grill you could order, and it had all the organs, right? So it was liver and heart and kidney, and I think it had blood sausage. And that I never got used to. I never got used to sweetbreads, but it was just such a wide open world. And at one point, a very good friend of mine was a restaurant consultant. So I got to go around to all these restaurants and eat for free as a starving actress. That's great. And that's the other thing about food for me. The only time I got to eat really great food is when I was working at hotels or restaurants. And then I worked with Phil Rosenthal, who created Everybody Loves Raymond. And he had a mom who wasn't a great cook. And so what he used to do, even as a starving actor, writer in New York, he would save up money all year. And then for his birthday, he would take himself out to a very high end restaurant. And he brought that same sensibility to Everybody Loves Raymond. So much of the workplace revolved around food. This is before, you could get everything everywhere through Goldbelly or whatever. So, like at that time, Krispy Kreme donuts was still local to the South, and he would have those FedExed in for us, Krispy Kreme donuts. Or he'd have the Pink's hot dog truck, which is very famous in LA. He'd have it driven onto the soundstage so that we could have Pink's hot dogs. So he really also introduced me to sort of like the finer things in life as far as cuisine was concerned. And now, of course, he has this wonderful show, Somebody Feed Phil, which he goes all over the world highlighting food and restaurants. So it didn't start out that way, but eventually my adventures in the entertainment industry took me to all these great food places. And I'm so, so grateful. Even though as actors, you're not really, you're supposed to be trying to keep the weight off. So, and somehow Phil does it well. He really, he eats wonderfully, but he also is very specific about what and how much he eats. And then he works out and exercises regularly. So that's kind of how we in the industry where it's all about appearances have had to kind of balance our love of food with needing to stay camera ready.
So it's food math,
Yes,
basically.
it's food math. That's exactly right. Yes.
And Phil and Lily, they put out a children's book earlier this year, and they were on the show. So I love it. So now I've got a mission to have everybody from Everybody Loves Raymond on the show. Isn't that a
Excellent.
good goal?
Yes, that's a great goal. Yes, because Ray and Romano and Brad Garrett are extremely entertaining guests. So you definitely want to have them on.
Well, I 2 down,
Yes.
definitely. In food, it connected you really with your acting career, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of went hand in hand. Like when your survival jobs are restaurant related, and then when you get on a set like Everybody Loves Raymond, where the showrunner is a foodie, it's really fun. It's one of the perks of the business, is to be able to have, try all different cool stuff. And for instance, so I'm currently in Los Angeles because I was shooting the last 3 episodes of the Frasier reboot with my pal Kelsey Grammer. And so last night was the final taping. And one of the wonderful things about show business is people like to celebrate all the time. So we were celebrating the final episode. So they bring in all these food trucks. So I went from, trying to really watch what I was eating to having a massive funnel cake and churros and acai bowl and ice cream bar. And they had a breakfast bar when we came in with these breakfast burritos and an omelet bar. I mean, there was so much food happening. I ate more food last night than I have in a year. And so, that it's really kind of fun. We had, there's a wonderful British actors on the Frasier reboot. And I was saying to one of them, this is not this way in England, is it? They're not all kind of gifty and celebratory on their shows. He goes, oh no, not at all. You wouldn't get anything like this. And I said, it's kind of like tea and a biscuit, right? He goes, absolutely. So I love that. I love that in the entertainment industry, we try to celebrate a lot little achievements because they're so fleeting. They're so few and far between, and they don't last very long. And so I've realized that it's really important to celebrate it when you have a job, and when it for however long it lasts, and even celebrate when it ends, the fact that you were able to do it at all. And food is a great way to celebrate those things.
And it sounds like I picked like the perfect day to talk to you, because you're coming off of all of the, you had a big food event, a food related interfaith event on Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
and you had like the food truck fest at work
Yeah.
yesterday.
Yes.
Uh, what are ways that people can use food to have conversations with people who are different from them?
Well, I think what's interesting about food is how it's culturally related often. And you can start out by just talking about how great food is, which can lead you to talking about where it comes from and how people relate to it. And I think it's such a kind of the Switzerland of topics. Like there's nothing political about food. It's kind of neutral. Um, and so I think it's a great way to bring people together. A food gathering is usually a happy gathering. I don't drink, but if you pair it with a little wine or something, it helps people to relax and loosen up. And so I think it's just a wonderful way to get to know each other without that's not political, and it's just it's just life. It's just about life. It's just about enjoying life and feeling blessed and coming together as members of the human race.
And so you mentioned the nonprofit you started after
Mm.
October 7th, and not getting is it doing better? Is using food as this vehicle to talk about our differences working?
Yes, it's so sort of non-controversial to say, let's sit down together and break bread. Um, and you're not inviting political speakers necessarily. You're not, yeah, there's not an agenda other than to say, let's be together in this time of crisis. And by the way, we had in our most recent one, which was at the Dream Center in Echo Park in Los Angeles. And it was Jews, Christians, and some Muslims too. And so this is what we're looking for. We're looking for people who have shared values of Western democracy, of freedom, freedom to practice your faith, freedom without fear of violence, trying to come together to understand each other and to stand up for what our country represents. And everybody knows that no country is perfect, and that includes the United States of America. But it sure is the best, I believe, of imperfect places, it's the best one. And so people are coming here in droves because it's a good place to achieve your dreams and to be who you were created to be and to flourish as a human being. And those are the things we try to celebrate over our unity tables. And I think it also helps our Jewish neighbors feel like they're not alone. And the thing I keep getting from people is that it's very meaningful because the Jewish people are sort of the smallest race on the planet, the least represented numbers wise. And so it's very important for myself as a Catholic Christian and others like me who have had the blessing of what we consider to be grafted into the Jewish tradition through our Jewish rabbi savior. And so, I personally feel that if the biological family of my Jewish rabbi savior is being attacked, it's important for me to let them know that I am with them and want to stand by them and do what I can to support them. And so coming together at a table of beautiful food is a wonderful way to do that, because even though we're coming together because of a crisis, there's a lot of joy in gathering in that way. And what I have found in these gatherings and in rallies I've gone to is the sense of joy and celebration. And I think among the Jewish people, there always seems to be almost a mandate to celebrate. A mandate to celebrate. That rhymes. We need to make that into a t-shirt or something.
I agree. Well, and you were saying this before too about the work. In my other me as this goal strategist, workshop leader, author, I'm all about, okay, what is your goal? What can you celebrate along the way? Because that's what keeps us going.
Yes, I have always felt this about our industry, is that, as I said, it is fleeting, it comes and goes, it rarely comes at all. Like, anybody who's successful in the entertainment industry is a very tiny percentage of people. And so when you have something that comes along, you get a job, even if it's a commercial, you get a movie or a TV show, even if you only get one episode of it, or even if your series only lasts for one season, you still have to celebrate it, because it's an achievement just to get that far. It's so difficult to do. And also, what I found is I meet so many great people that even if it doesn't last a long time, I've still made lifelong relationships far after the project is gone. So I completely believe in celebrating, because there's always blessings to be found in all these events.
Do you have any advice or food for thought for people who don't have access to these kinds of events but want to share that spirit?
Yes, part of what we want to do at O7C is to help people and activate Christians to do something in their community. And it can be sort of, what we like people to do is tailor it to wherever you're living. So, for instance, my primary residence is Nashville, and that's where O7C started. And of course, Nashville is known as Music City. And so we partnered with Congregation Shereth Israel, which is an Orthodox synagogue run by Rabbi Saul Strasberg, and they're very musically oriented. And of course, so is Nashville. And so Rabbi Saul and these wonderful congregants, Natasha and Yossi, said, let's fly Israeli musicians to Nashville who have just completed their IDF service and do kind of music therapy for them and pair them with wonderful producers in Nashville and record their music for them. So we just had our first, what is called the Promise sessions. And we have these three wonderful Israeli musicians. And we had this incredible music producer, Steve Schnur, who's the VP at EA Games and head of music supervision. And he pro bono produced these beautiful songs. And if you go to October7coalition.com, or if you go to the official O7C on social media, you can see some snippets of the recording sessions and of the music. So we're encouraging people to find ways in their community and if to sort of activate Christians and Jews together. So I think if you go to October7coalition.com, and sign up, we can help you plan things for your own city. And sometimes myself and my partner Elizabeth can even come to your city if it's a big enough gathering and help formulate these events. Often at the events we have, Jewish speakers, Christian speakers, musicians. One of the ones we had a hostage family this past Sunday at the Unity dinner. We've had Nova Festival survivors and kibbutzim survivors, one from Kibbutz Be'eri. So there's different ways you can do that, and there's a lot of resources you probably don't know about in your own town because you just haven't thought about it. But once you start looking, you'll find that there's tons of resources of opportunities to get together, especially with either your local synagogue or local Jewish federation.
I love that you answered my question about where can people learn more before I even asked it. Are there any other links that you want to share that you think are good for people to follow to stay, I don't know, elevated,
Yeah, there's
connected?
well, there's a number of great people on social media. I was just at a social media roundtable for people who are kind of doing work in this space. And I think one of the things I took away from it is trying to stay positive and educate people. It's easy to go down into a negative space and kind of start fighting with people on social media. I mean, I'm Irish. That's my nature, is to want to fight. So, but I'm working on that. So, and this roundtable was really great about how to engage people. And there's and I can't think of everybody offhand because I don't have all their social media handles, but I can, find them and give them to you to put in your captions or your text for this interview, of people who, are really engaged in this space and can kind of help other people find a way to get involved too. But any like Jewish Federation is a great place to start to find, or your local synagogue. I mean, I think that's the best place to just, even just reach out and say, hello, I'm your neighbor, I'm a Christian, anything that you need, we'd love to help you with. Just that gesture opens a really big door and opens it very wide, because sometimes that's all it takes to start the relationship. And then you find your way in a way that's natural and, mutually beneficial.
I love that so much. One of it, and this had happened a little, but not nearly as much. But like after October 7th, I'd be in conversations, and my non-Jewish friends would say, you know, I don't know what to say to my
Yes.
Jewish friends, but I'm here or we're with you. And that's really all what you're doing is saying, we're with you.
Yes. And
That's it.
yes, I mean, one of my first Instagram posts after October 7th, I said, did you ever have that thought that if you were a German during World War II, you hoped you would have been that good German who hid their Jewish neighbors? Well, today we have that opportunity. And I listed a bunch of places people could donate to. And then I said, if you can't afford it right now, call or text a Jewish friend and just ask how they're doing. You won't believe how meaningful it will be to those friends. Because when I did it, I mean, I don't know why I just had the instinct to call up all my Jewish friends and said, how are you doing? Because I guess I also know that a lot of people have family over in Israel, but even those who don't, it's still very personal what happened. And I mean, people were really just really hurting, frightened. I mean, I had a few friends, of course, who were like, this just strengthens my resolve. This just makes me angry. It's time to fight. So I had a few of those too, which is good to hear. Um, but that was what really sort of got my engine going. And for me, people say, well, oh, have you been to Israel? I've never been to Israel. Oh, well, I was someone Jewish in your family. No, I'm as Catholic as you can get. My mother was one of 15 children. I have over 100 first cousins on my mother's side of the family. My grandmother was Catholic Mother of the Year for the United States and got a medal from the Pope. And my sister's a nun. So So people are like, so why are you doing this? I'm like, I don't know. I played Seidel in the St. Edward's Catholic Boys School production of Fiddler. So maybe that's where it comes from. I don't know. But so, I just, like I said, this really affects all of us. It's they say that like the Jews are the canary in the coal mine. This is not just about Jewish people. Jewish people represent a lot. Um, and there's socialism and communism and fascism and wanting to tear down what this country has built. And as I said, it's not a perfect place, but it's pretty darn good. So I think it's something that we all have to be concerned about.
It- you do know we went in like 27 different directions from joy to trauma, which I love, right? And I think a lot of what you're talking about, this connection, is, the faith. You're raised well, you love people. Let's love everybody. And if we
Yes.
can't love them, at least let's support and have the conversation and put as much good in the world as we can.
Yes, and you know what I've found, as I've gotten to speak to a lot of different Jewish groups and get to know a lot of different people, we're working, trying to get the campus Hillels and Chabads together with like Campus Crusade for Christ and InterVarsity and Fellowship of Christian Athletes, to get them all working together to create a safe and welcoming place on campuses. And um, I've just found that the Jewish people are so deeply philanthropic. And it's been a reminder to me that really our mission on earth for all people is to create opportunities for human flourishing, especially for those who have been born into this world with fewer options and opportunities than we have. So that when you see people who are just as valuable and human as you, but they were not born into circumstances that makes their flourishing easy, the Jewish people really spend really all their time trying to create those spaces for people. And it's really impressive. It's really been humbling for me to see. I mean, the Catholic Church really has always been about serving the poor, and they do that everywhere all over the world, but I am seeing that that is also in the Jewish community. And so it's easy to partner because we have the same outlook on life, which is, as I said, to help advocate for human flourishing.
Well, you're definitely speaking my language, and I'm so glad we got to have this conversation. I want to end on food. So, we know that you love food, but you also love cooking, and we didn't have nearly enough time to delve into that. What is it you love about that process?
I think it's sort of a meditative activity. It's tactile, it's physical, it engages all your senses. And for someone who works in an industry where everything is sort of ephemeral, you go in front of cameras, you do stuff, but the editor takes it away. You have no idea how it's going to turn out. You don't know if anybody's actually going to watch it. It's great to be able to go into a kitchen, pull some ingredients together, start cooking, chopping, sauteing, whatever you're baking, whatever you're doing. And at the end of it, you have a meal, and it actually is nourishing yourself and others. And it's a very kind of, tangible thing. Like a lot of times after I finish doing a season on a TV series, I come home and the first thing I do is rearrange the my closet, and I just get it sorted and organized, because I just need to do something where I can say I started it today and I finished it today, and I can see the result. And cooking is like that too, where you can set out to achieve something and you can do it within an hour and a half, and feed people, and you've accomplished something for that day. And it also just engages your mind on a level that takes you out of the craziness of the world. And it's like a cleanser. It's like when you practice piano or a language for half an hour and your mind is just focused on this one thing, and it just kind of calms your system down. And I know I need more of that. I tend to get in my head a lot and read a lot of the news, and that can just make you crazy. And taking time out to care for yourself and others through food is such a great meditative practice.
And then you get to eat, and then you get to celebrate the eating and the
That's
cooking.
that's right. Exactly.
So it's all the wins. Thank you so much, Patricia Heaton, for joining me. This has been just such an intense but uplifting conversation, which isn't that always the goal, right?
Yes, that's the goal.
Any final food for thought before we wrap?
Well, just I do have a cookbook called Patricia Heaton Parties, Food for Family and Friends, and it's a recipes kind of based on the stuff my mom cooked and of some of my experiences of traveling, and they're super easy and they're super family friendly. So that's a great place to start if you're not that big on cooking, but you want to give a few things a try.
But always fun to try new foodie adventures. So
Yes,
thank you for sharing that. And
yes,
thank you again for joining me. And thank you for tuning in to Taste Buds with Deb. Don't miss an episode. You can subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, and or your favorite podcast platform. And you can go to jewishjournal.com/podcast to read the articles that go with each episode. And you can learn more at tastebudswithdeb.com. So go share a meal, break some bread, and with food, bring more joy to your life and the lives of the people around you. Until next time, bon appetit.